All right, so are you ready to dive into some seriously cool AI stuff today? We're going to be taking a look at this whole zero-shot learning thing.
Zero-shot learning.
Yeah, you know, like those AI models like CLIP, Stable Diffusion, the ones that are like supposed to be able to learn without, needing to see like a zillion examples beforehand.
Right, right.
So we're really going to try to figure out if these models are like the real deal or if they're secretly just these data-hungry beasts.
Yeah.
And to help us figure this whole thing out, we're going to be checking out this brand new research paper.
Okay.
Like fresh off the press from some seriously smart folks over at the University of Tübingen and the University of Oxford.
Wow, impressive.
Yeah, and these researchers, they didn't mess around. They put a crazy number of AI models, like 34 different ones. Yeah, 34. Through like a real gauntlet of tests.
Wow.
We're talking like everything from your classic image recognition AI to those text-to-image generators everybody's talking about these days.
Yeah, those are really cool.
And get this, they didn't just use like 1 or 2 data sets. They unleashed these models on 5, count them, 5 massive data sets.
5. That's intense.
We're talking like LAIN, conceptual captions, like the big leagues. So the first thing that really jumped out at us,
Yeah, what's that?
it was actually surprisingly straightforward, when you think about it.
Fine.
So
Yeah.
basically, they found this really clear connection between how often a concept shows up, like in the AI's training data,
Yeah,
and how well it does on that concept.
makes sense.
In like a, in a zero shot kind of way.
Right.
Basically, the more an AI sees something during training, the better it gets at recognizing it later, even if it's, never seen that exact thing before.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of intuitive when you think about it. The more you show an AI, the better it gets at recognizing it. Like, if you show a kid, like, I don't know, 1 million pictures of, like, birds,
Right.
and then you're surprised when they can point out a bird.
Right, exactly, yeah.
It's like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
you showed them 1 million pictures of birds.
Yeah, it's like, duh.
But here's where it gets kind of crazy.
Okay.
It's not just about seeing more examples. It's about seeing exponentially more examples.
Exponentially?
Yeah, so like the researchers, they found this thing. It's called a log linear relationship.
Okay, log linear. I can already see some of our listeners like eyes glazing over.
Sure, yeah.
What is that like? What does that actually mean? Can you like give us a real world example?
Yeah, for sure. So like imagine you're training an AI
Okay.
to recognize, I don't know, it's like different types of craft beers.
Okay. Why not?
Yeah, why not, right? So you can't just show it like a couple pictures of like, an IPA and a stout
Right.
and expect it to be like this like total beer snob like magically overnight,
Right.
To get that level of expertise, you have to drown this thing in pictures of beers,
Yeah.
right? Like a crazy amount.
Yeah.
Like every single type of beer imaginable.
Okay.
And these AI models, they're kind of the same way. Like even like tiny improvements in how well they do
Right.
require these like massive increases in like the data that they're trained on.
So it's like trying to become like a master sommelier, like a wine expert, but just by like looking at pictures of wine bottles.
Exactly, yeah.
Like you might learn to tell like a Cabernet from a Merlot, but good luck, identifying the specific vineyard
Right.
and the year just by sight. So like it makes you wonder, right?
Yeah.
If these models need to see a concept so many times to get it, like, can we even call it zero-shot learning? Like if it needs all that training, is it really learning from scratch?
And that's where, things get, kind of philosophical,
Yeah.
like where the researchers are really challenging, our traditional understanding of what zero shot even means, right?
Yeah.
So their research like seems to show that even when these AI models like look like they're pulling off like magic, they're really relying on these patterns that they've picked up from these just massive, massive amounts of data.
Which, I mean, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And, thinking about it practically, like, this has huge implications, right?
Totally.
For anyone who's using, like, AI in their work, like, let's say you're, like, prepping for a presentation on some super niche topic.
Yeah.
Like, don't just assume your AI buddy can just, like, wing it.
Right, exactly. Like you're going to have to do some hand-holding.
Yeah.
Especially if it's something that's like not super, like every day.
Right, exactly. Speaking of everyday knowledge, let's talk about this whole long tail idea
Too, yeah.
that the researchers kept mentioning. What is that?
So yeah, the long tail. Okay, so picture a graph, right? On one end, you've got all like the common stuff, right? Like your cats, your landmarks, like pizza slices, whatever.
Right, the basics.
Yeah, and then way out on the other end, like way out in the long tail, that's where you find the really, really niche stuff.
Like what?
Like we're talking obscure bird species, vintage vacuum cleaners.
Okay.
Like stuff that only a handful of people even care about.
Right.
But the point is, this long tail thing, this, where like a few things are super common.
Yeah.
And everything else is, kind of rare. Well, the researchers found this pattern in basically all the data sets they looked at.
Okay, so it's everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy part. Even those mega data sets, the ones with like millions upon millions of examples,
Yeah, right, yeah.
they still might not have enough data for those long tail concepts. Think about it like, I don't know, like having access to the Library of Congress.
Okay.
The biggest library ever, right?
Yeah.
And you get there, and they've only got like one book.
Oh, no.
On your very specific like research topic. It's like, are you kidding me?
That's the worst.
Yeah. And that's where things get even more interesting, because to see how these AI models handle the long tail, the researchers actually created a whole new data set.
They did. What'd they call it?
Let it wag.
Let it wag.
Let it wag.
Okay, I love it.
So it's like this benchmark designed to, really expose the kind of weaknesses of these models when it comes to dealing with, the unfamiliar. Like, we're talking 130,000 test images across 290 super carefully chosen categories, all stuff that's like, not really in those mainstream data sets.
So they basically took these AI models that are used to like acing their tests, right? In a controlled environment, and then they threw them a curveball.
Totally.
With let it wag. Okay, so what happened? Like, did they rise to the challenge?
Not really. Like, even the biggest, most advanced models, their performance kind of took a nosedive.
Really?
Yeah, compared to how they did on the, more common data sets.
Yeah.
So it turns out, even with all that data, AI still really struggles with stuff that's unfamiliar.
Okay, so maybe AI isn't ready to take over the world just yet, but here's another thing, right?
Yeah. What about the quality of all the data that these models are being trained on?
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. A lot of it is, to be honest, kind of messy.
Messy?
Yeah, misaligned, like really misaligned.
Misaligned. So it's like not just about how much data there is, but it's like it actually matters if the data is like any good.
Exactly. Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Right.
Like, imagine trying to like learn a new language, but from a phrase book where like half the translations are like totally wrong.
Okay, yeah.
You might be able to like order a coffee, but you might end up with like, I don't know, a plate of snails instead of a croissant.
That is both hilarious and terrifying at the same time.
Right.
So like what kind of misalignment are we even talking about here? So the researchers found this like major disconnect between like the images and the text in a lot of these AI training data sets.
Okay.
So you might have like a picture of like a golden retriever, but the text label says German Shepherd.
Oh, wow.
Or like you might have this beautiful picture of like a sunset.
Yeah.
But the text is like describing a thunderstorm.
Oh, no, that's not good.
Yeah, it's like a recipe for disaster. Remember that AI chef we were talking about?
Yeah.
Imagine them trying to cook from a recipe book where the pictures and the instructions are like totally mismatched.
Total chaos.
Total chaos. And the researchers found that this kind of misalignment, it's actually way more common than you might think.
Really?
Oh, yeah. In one data set, they found that over 36% of the image-text pairs were misaligned in some way.
So, like, almost 40% of the data is basically garbage.
Yeah, pretty much.
No wonder these AI models aren't, like, perfect yet.
Right. And that's on top of,
Right.
The whole long tail problem. And just like the sheer amount of data these models need.
Right.
It's pretty clear that we're still in the early days of AI, right?
Yeah.
Still a lot to figure out.
Yeah, no kidding. It's kind of reassuring in a way, right?
How so?
Well, I mean, we keep hearing about how AI is going to, like, take over the world.
Right.
But it sounds like we've got some time before the robot uprising begins.
Yeah, I think we can hold off the robot overlords for a bit longer. But, in all seriousness, while this research does highlight some of the, limitations of AI right now, it also points to some really, like, exciting new areas for research and development.
Okay, like what? Give us some hope here.
Well, like, for one thing, if we know that data quality is such a big deal, then we can start figuring out ways to, like, clean up those massive data sets.
Okay, yeah.
Right. And make sure that the information that AI is learning from is actually, good information.
Right, it's time to tidy up the AI playground a little bit.
Exactly. No more letting these models run wild with bad data.
And then, instead of just like throwing more and more data at the problem, maybe we need to like start thinking about smarter ways to train AI, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe we can develop methods that help AI learn more efficiently from fewer examples or algorithms that are just better at like generalizing from limited data.
Right. So it's about like working smarter, not harder.
Instead of just like force feeding the AI all this information, maybe we need to like teach it to think more critically and actually like connect the dots on its own.
Exactly. And this is where things get really, really cool, because this research isn't just about, identifying problems. It's about sparking new ideas and like pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all. It's a call to action.
Yes.
It's an invitation to think differently about how we approach AI development.
Okay, I'm feeling a little more optimistic now. So we've talked about the challenges of zero-shot learning, the data quality issue, and like the need for more sophisticated training methods. But what does this actually mean for us out here in the real world? Like, where do we even go from here? So like we've spent all this time talking about zero-shot learning and how much of a mess AI data can be.
It's true.
Like it kind of makes you wonder, right?
Yeah.
What does this all mean for the future of AI?
It's the big question, isn't it?
Like, are we heading towards like a robot utopia or a sci-fi nightmare?
Well, I'm not sure if it's quite that black and white.
Okay.
I think this research is a good like reality check for anyone who thinks like AI is about to become super intelligent,
Right.
like overnight.
Yeah.
But, it's also reason to be optimistic because it shows us, where we need to focus.
Okay, so like if we're writing the next chapter of AI, what does that even look like?
Well, imagine a future where instead of, just throwing more data at AI, we're actually teaching it to think like more like us.
Okay. Yeah.
AI systems that can like understand nuance, context, even things like common sense.
Yeah.
Which humans seem to like just get,
Right.
But for AI, it's like a big deal.
So it's almost like we're teaching AI to like read between the lines.
Yeah.
Not just like scan the surface. So we're talking about AI that's less about just memorizing stuff.
Right.
And more about like actually understanding it.
Exactly. Yeah, like AI that can take limited information and like actually make connections. Connect, seemingly random dots, and even like admit when it doesn't know something.
Okay, and maybe even like ask questions to learn more instead of just spitting out whatever it's been, trained on.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Now that's the kind of AI I could get behind, but like, let's be real for a sec.
Yeah.
We're talking about some really complex stuff here.
For sure.
Like, how do we make this happen?
Yeah.
Is it even possible?
Well, it's definitely a challenge, but that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah.
Right? This is where like the real innovation happens.
Okay.
Like right now, we're already seeing people doing some really cool stuff.
Like what?
Like experimenting with different training methods.
Okay.
Like reinforcement learning, where, the AI kind of learns through trial and error.
Right. So it's like giving AI the space to actually like learn from its mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's also this other really interesting area called like explainable AI.
Explainable AI.
Which is all about making it easier for us, like humans, to understand how AI is making decisions.
So no more AI black boxes.
Yeah. Right. We'll finally be able to like, see what's going on under the hood.
Exactly. And, that kind of transparency, it's going to be so important going forward, especially as AI becomes, even more integrated into our lives.
Yeah. It's like if AI is going to help us make decisions,
right,
we kind of need to know how it's making those decisions.
Right.
We have to trust it, which means we have to like understand it.
Yeah. Exactly. And, that's why, to me, like, this research is so cool.
Yeah.
It's not just about, finding the problems, but it's about starting a conversation.
Yeah.
About, like, really pushing the limits of what AI can do. And hopefully, creating a future where AI is, like, a force for good.
Yeah.
Something that helps us solve some of the world's, like, biggest challenges. Well said. Well said. It sounds like the future of AI is less about being, like, scared of the robots taking over.
Yeah.
And more about like collaboration, transparency,
yeah,
and a healthy dose of like critical thinking too.
I love it.
And there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into zero-shot learning, messy data, and the always exciting, always evolving world of AI. Until next time, keep those minds curious, and remember, sometimes the most groundbreaking discoveries, they come from asking, the simplest questions. We'll catch you on the flip side.